The METUS Tech Show.
Welcome to the METUS Tech Show, a show for HVAC professionals by HVAC professionals.
The METUS Tech Show.
All right, so is it boneless wings or bone in?
It depends on what mood I'm in, but generally if I'm out, because I prefer the boneless simply because I don't have to, because I like to wash my hands. If I'm going to do bone-in wings, I have to wash my hands afterwards, maybe take a shower, and, my face, it gets all over my forehead.
Wash all your clothes.
Yeah, my clothes, my shirts. You've seen my shirts. Look at this one is stained. I'm wearing right now. Yep. So if I'm home, I'll do bone-in. If I'm out, if it's available, I'll do boneless.
Yeah, so I think like anything else, like steaks, if it's got a bone in it, it's got more flavor and everything else.
Absolutely.
So that's the way I feel about that. My kids, they're like, Dad, I want the boneless wings, and they don't want to deal with, and they'll get the bone in wings and they'll take 2 bites out of it, and there's all this meat left over. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
no, that drives me crazy.
Like, you got to clean that thing off.
Yeah,
man.
if I'm doing the bone-in wings, there's nothing left on that. Maybe a little bit of cartilage. I might even eat that actually, but that's just the bone and maybe a little cartilage. That's all that's there.
Yeah. So Brendan and I have a go-to wing place in Orlando when we're down there teaching classes or filming tech tip videos. We hit Miller's.
I love Miller's.
Yeah. Miller's Ale House, and there's a bunch of locations, but they do a fantastic job with wings. They have something called zingers, which are the boneless style wings. Then they have the bone-in style wings as well. Yeah, but they got a ton of flavor, different sauces. You can get them on the side. You can get them folded into the wings. But just some of their different flavors at Miller's is garlic parmesan.
That's my favorite. I like it spicy, so I'll get a spicy sauce on the wings and then a side of the garlic parmesan just to dip it in. But they're so good. All their sauces are good. I've tried most of them. Yeah, they got the really hot one, which you got to really be used to the heat. Yeah, I forget. Is it the Mount St. Helens, whatever their hottest one is?
Yeah. So 5 Pepper Fire, I think, is the hottest. Yeah. That they go up to, and I've had the hottest. We've had the hottest sauces, and they were hot, but I was expecting more.
I agree.
But
if you go to Dallas, they have a couple of different wing places there, but they have one called Duff's. And Jerry Flynn and I were in there, and we said, can we try a sample of your hottest sauce? And she goes, hold on, let me get a waiver for you to sign. And we're like, oh, never mind.
Yeah. So I have tried the hottest wings that they have, and there's 3 skull and crossbones next to it.
Oh, geez.
It's called the Afterlife. So that's their hottest sauce.
Where is this?
So I'm yet to bring you to this place. Yeah. It's in Dallas. Okay. It's in Grapevine.
Is that Duff's?
Duff's, yeah.
Duff's, yeah.
Yeah. So they start, obviously the sauces start with a mild, medium light, medium hot. It goes to hot, super hot, near death, and then afterlife. And
did you have to sign a waiver?
Yes.
Yeah. See, I didn't want to go there.
You can ask for, and sometimes they give it to you, sometimes they don't. You can ask for a little sample. It hurts. It's you got some pain going on after you're done with the Afterlife sauce. Yeah, you better have some milk or something there, which I don't drink milk, so it's got to be water.
Yeah,
or something like that.
Yeah, water makes it worse.
But they also have garlic parmesan, teriyaki, lemon pepper, if that's your thing. That's more of a Felix. Felix likes the lemon pepper.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about lemon.
I had to bust his chops on that one last time. Can we get the lemon pepper? I don't like spicy stuff.
Yeah, probably he wants lavender chicken or something.
Lavender chicken.
Chipotle, sweet garlic, right? And there's another place down the street in Grapevine, right down the street from Duff's, called Pluckers.
Pluckers, that's a good place too.
Yeah. So I remember probably a couple of weeks after I started here at Mitsubishi, you took me to Pluckers, and I was excited. I had to get the the hottest sauce that they had, and I was hurting. It was called Vampire Killer.
Yeah, remember that one? That's
Yeah.
I don't mind the heat, but it has to have flavor. If it just burns, then it's not for me.
Right.
It has to have flavor.
Right. And another thing I don't dig is I'm more of a chili person. I'm not habanero.
Yeah.
Habanero, I'm not, but some people like the habanero. What's your go-to flavor, Bryn?
Well, when we go to Miller's, I always get what I don't know if they still have it, but they had a called Kenny's Barbecue.
Yeah.
Which was like a mix of like a Korean barbecue with like a honey barbecue. And so it had a little bit of heat from like the gochujang, but it was also really sweet. And that one was awesome. Typically, if I'm doing bone-in wings, I'll get like a buffalo or a spicy sauce. And then if I do the boneless wings, which as far as I'm concerned, if you're eating boneless wings, that's just what adults gave the name chicken nuggets to.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just adult chicken nuggets. Let's just admit it. But bone-in wings, with the boneless wings, I'll do barbecue almost all the time.
Yeah.
And like spicy chicken tenders.
See, I'm not crazy about barbecue sauce. I like either the heat or anything with garlic. You can't over garlic anything. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if I'm
Garlic's
getting
good.
boneless wings from Pub 99, I don't know if you ever got boneless wings from Pub 99, they had the Gold Fever.
Okay.
Gold Fever wings. So they got two. They got Buffalo and Gold Fever. They might have another one now, but Gold Fever is just, it's dangerous. It's so good. It's
As far as local places, my favorite buffalo wings are from the 99. They're just something about them.
Yeah.
Just so good.
yeah. Now, what about a dipping sauce other than the hot sauces? What about ranch and blue cheese? I know we won't go into blue cheese debate again, but I'll do either one. Like if it's a buffalo wing, I'm gonna do blue cheese.
Yep.
Right. Anything else, I'm probably gonna go with the ranch.
100%. That is the way to do it.
Yeah, I don't use those sauces. I'll use like the stuff that they put on the wing, like the hot sauces, the garlic parmesan. I'll do that. But as far as ranch and blue cheese, you can keep that.
So 7 wings or 14?
14.
As many as you can get on the plate.
Yeah.
Oh, I love wings.
14's not enough.
Yeah. Yeah. French fries? No French fries.
I'm all about
You gotta
French
be careful.
fries. I love French fries.
French fries are great, but you got to be careful because then you're too full to finish your wings.
Yeah.
If you're an amateur.
I'll dip my French fries in the wing sauce.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the great thing I love about Duff's in Grapevine in Dallas, Texas is they give you a bucket.
Yeah.
So they bring out a little tin bucket and throw it on the table and just whip your bones in
For the
there.
bones.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Good places. You ever been to Babe's Chicken? I think that's in the Dallas area
I
too.
got to try that.
You got to
Been
go
hearing
there
a lot.
again. I haven't been there in a while, but it's so good. I mean, you're talking about like a chicken meal, like a chicken breast all fried up and some fried chicken. It's really
Traditional
good.
fried chicken.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So do they do wings as well?
They probably do, but I've only been there I think once or twice. But it's been so long ago that I forgot. But I do remember thinking, next time I'm in town, I got to come here.
I'm going to have to do some wings very soon.
And listen, not to badmouth any place, but these chains like the, I won't say the name of it, but something called the City from New York Wild Wings.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm sorry, you can keep those places.
Yeah,
Those are just awful.
when they get to, when it's a chain, you could have some good ones. You could have some
Yeah,
stinkers.
no, you keep that. I've been there once, and I won't go back.
Yeah. But I'm all about the crispy bone-in wing.
Yep.
If it's all soggy and drippy and undercooked,
No.
I'm going to take a pass.
There's a place near my house that went out of business about 10 or 15 years ago, and they had probably the best bone-in wings I've ever had. The only thing is when you eat these things, sometimes you'll still see some feathers on them, a few of the pieces.
Oh, really?
But it was so good. Everybody was disgusted by it, but the flavor was so good. I can overlook a feather or two.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I cannot. I won't be able to do
I have to
that.
pick those out.
Used to drive my mother crazy. Why are
the
there
feathers?
feathers on these wings? This is awful. I go, taste them, Ma. Taste them. I'm not eating those.
Still chirping.
I'll take a dozen wings and hold the feathers there, buddy. Wow. Welcome to the METUS Tech Show, everybody.
Hey.
For those of you that don't know what METUS stands for, it's Mitsubishi Electric Train US. And I'm here with Paul Shaves,
Hello, everyone.
Bryn Raptor,
How's it going?
Velociraptor.
myself, Steve Pimentel. Yeah. Today we're going to talk about app notes.
App notes. App notes, application notes.
Yes. So
App
we're
for
not,
short.
yes. So we're not talking about apps at a restaurant. We're talking
Not anymore.
about application notes on mylinkdrive.com. So for those of you that have kind of scrolled by that tab and said, what's an app note? I'm not even going to click on it. It's probably nothing.
It's something.
Valuable information, right?
It's right between policies and tech tips. App notes. Click on that.
Yeah. So a lot of the topics on the app notes, they're just basically PDF files on a ton of different residential topics, commercial topics, and controls topics. And they're a simplified description of an application or a wiring schematic. And we also get into topics that are not in the installation manual or service manual.
Yep.
Such as burying refrigerant lines, right? So if you have to bury refrigerant lines, we have guidelines that will cover what we want you to do when you're burying refrigerant lines and how it should be properly done. Another app note, for instance, that is not in a manual, installation manual, is when you're mounting or installing, outdoor units in a mechanical room. How are you going to ventilate that, right? So we have an air source condenser. It needs to go into a mechanical room. Can I do that? Well, there's an app note on it, and it's got a list of guidelines, right?
Yeah, and high altitude applications. So you folks out in Denver, you're going to want to look at this app note because that's not really spelled out in great detail in any of the manuals. But once you click on the tab, you go to mylinkdrive.com and you click on the app notes tab, you're going to see that they're split up into 3 sections, residential, commercial, and controls. And you're going to see 15, 20 app notes in each section. When we don't have time to run through every single one, we'll talk about a few of them here in a minute here. But, there's control wiring. There's the blue diamond pumps. There's some rated capacity versus maximum capacity, for those who are confused on that. We mentioned high altitude, refrigerant accessories, supplemental heat control, even the little TAZ switch, the 3-pole switch that some electrical inspectors require at the indoor unit. There's something on that. On the commercial side, like we also have, you mentioned the buried refrigerant lines, the high altitude applications. There's actually an app note on ASHRAE standards. So if you want to brush up on that, it's there, ASHRAE standards 15 and 34. Server rooms, outdoor units placed indoors. There's even some of the controls things, some backnet settings, and if you're still using LawnWorks and the Deluxe MA and thermostat interface and so on, it just goes on and on.
Yeah. So one of the first ones. So Bryn took some time to jot down some of the more interesting app notes, and the first one, app note 1014, explains how dry mode works.
Right.
It's always kind of a mystery to everybody. How does dry mode work? Bryn, can you explain, just to give us a couple of bullet points on that?
Yep. So on the high level, essentially any dry mode or dehumidification is going to come from a lower speed fan. The slower we can move the air across that refrigerant coil is going to allow us to absorb more moisture without driving down the temp quite as much. So that app note 1014, it kind of just breaks down how that works. So how we initiate it, how it's working. It'll actually explain, the frequency on that compressor when we're in dry mode, what the fan is going to do, and then also when it's going to come out. So sometimes because it's in dry mode, it's just low speed air conditioning. We do start to drive down that temperature, and it explains that when we're in dry mode, if we get 4 degrees below our set point on our controller, it's going to come out. It's not going to keep trying to dehumidify and driving that room even further down. So it still has a focus, or it will always prioritize comfort. So if we start in dry mode driving that temperature down too much at below 4 degrees below set point, we're going to cut out. And so it just explains how that all works, what's going on in the logic.
So we want the customer to be comfortable.
Right.
We don't want to just ignore set point the whole time.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Just a quick digression here. When I was in the field, my products were trained in Mitsubishi, right, as a contractor. Right. And every time I asked somebody what dry mode was and how it worked, I got a different answer. So you fast forward a couple of decades later, I get an interview with Mitsubishi and I get hired, and I'm thinking to myself, great, I finally get to find out what dry mode means. So I come to work here. My first week here, I asked a bunch of people, what does dry mode mean? I either got, I don't know, or I got a bunch of different answers.
Yeah.
Had I looked at the app note, had I known they were here, I would have had my answer right there.
Yeah.
So there's no need to guess. They just go look at the app note.
Right. And the great thing about dehumidification is we've kind of expanded our dry mode operation a little bit with automated dry mode.
Yep.
And Kumo Cloud and the new SDW controller do a great job of this automated dehumidification, which look for that. App Note 1022. Moving on to App Note 1022. It's an explanation of refrigerant accessories and why they aren't recommended, such as filter dryers, sight glasses, and traps. Paul, elaborate on that.
Yeah, well, the filter dryers, we don't have any filter dryers in our system installed from the factory. We don't need them. You know, in the past, we've beat triple evac to death. But if you pressurize a system with nitrogen and you do the triple evac and you braze using the nitrogen flowing through, very low amounts of nitrogen trickling through the system, you don't need filter dryers. So anyway, they don't come installed, right? Yeah. There is a time and a place when you'll need a filter dryer later if there's a burnout, you want to clean a system, but a brand new system installed, you don't need it. Sight glasses are the same thing. Back when I started, there was a filter dryer and sight glass on every liquid line. Well, first of all, we don't have a liquid line on the residential side because the metering device is right outside. So a sight glass, and goes back to the old habits that we used to have, is you charge by a sight glass. You keep adding refrigerant until you don't see the bubbles anymore. Well, you're always going to see bubbles.
And, funny story, Scott Tallman just pointed out something in one of our manuals. Mm-hmm. Oh, was it you?
It was me. Yep. I would have given him the credit.
So in the manual, it says do not use sight glasses because an inexperienced technician may come along and think it's undercharged.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it says.
That's exactly what it is.
But yeah, the days of clearing a sight glass, we don't do that with our ductless units because, especially on our residential units and VRF.
Yeah, I don't think today, in this day and age, on an air conditioning system, I don't think anybody should be using a sight glass.
Yeah,
period.
It's done in the refrigeration world where you have a true liquid line. That's always a liquid line, and that's not always the case with Mitsubishi heat pumps and VRF.
So that's App Note 1022, and that covers the filter dryers, the sight glasses, and traps. And we've talked about traps previously, too. We're talking about that industry rule of thumb that for every so many feet of riser, you install a trap. We don't want those in there. That's just an unneeded pressure drop. Same thing with the filter dryers, an unneeded pressure drop. That's all.
Yeah. Next one is App Note 1024, explanation of how supplemental heat works. Another one that is kind of foreign to a lot of technicians and some of us at Mitsubishi, right? Unless we're dependent. And there's two different CN24 functions. We're talking supplemental heat and how that works. How are we bringing on backup heat? How are we bringing on electric heat elements or hydronic coil on a ducted unit, right? When does that happen and how does that happen? And basically, it's a connector CN24 on our indoor units, and it sends 12 volts to a relay, and the relay kit can be purchased from your local distributor, plugs into CN24, closes the relay, and whatever you put on the other end of that relay is up to you. It's going to be red and white off of a circulator or a boiler maybe, or you're going to another relay to bring on some electric heating elements. But there's an old CN24 operation and new CN24 operation or logic. So look at your service manual to find out which of those two the indoor unit is using. But
and that's like you said, an app note is just I don't want to say a cheat sheet, but it's just an explanation. It dives deeper into the manual. But this app note here in particular is only 7 pages, and one of those is the title page, and one of those is a table of contents. So there are 5 pages here, and it's got some charts on there, take up a lot of room. So it's a quick, easy read, and you'll learn a lot by going to this app.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I mean, this is one of those things that you don't really think about until you get that install job where they want the heat kit or they want to use a CN24. So this is when it comes into, comes in handy is that first time you go for an install and they're like, oh yeah, they're actually going to use some supplemental heat. So then you can come to this app note instead of trying to navigate the manuals to find it.
Right. And if you're listening right now and you're from down south, you probably don't know what we're talking about. So I was in Orlando last week and I was diving really deep into CN24 operation with the class. And they were looking at me like I had two heads and I had to remember where I was. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm in Florida and they're not using this. And I think if they have to use it, iguanas are falling out of the palm trees, and it's at that point. But yeah, it's a great explanation on how our backup heat logic works. App Note 1040.
1040 is a good one. 1040 gives you the MXZ sequence of operation. And within that, it talks about cool and dry mode again. It talks about the heat mode, the defrost mode, refrigerant recovery mode, oil return mode, and mold, oil recovery mode, and even cold start prevention. So there's a lot here. It's only 8 pages, and it's a table of content and a title page, 2 of those pages. So it's a quick and easy read, and it even refers you to other manuals and even other app notes as well.
Yeah, and that will break down, the typical frequency ranges when we're in cooling or dry mode, how we initiate things like oil recovery mode or refrigerant recovery mode. It actually will break down the steps, what conditions have to be met for those things to come into play. So it just kind of clarifies what that sequence of operations is, what even has to happen before I go into oil recovery mode or cold start prevention.
Or defrost mode. You want to know how defrost mode works? It kind of spells it out for you there. It's a really good app note.
All right, so we just talked about a handful of app notes. There's probably 20 or 30 residential app notes, and we just covered some of them, some of the important ones. Let's talk about commercial app notes. App Note 2002, Bryn, talk about that one.
Yeah, so we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but App Note 2002 is for underground refrigerant line best practices. So depending on your application, that's why we call it an app note, you may have a situation where either it's engineered this way or it's just something that you need to accomplish to get the job done. We can go to App Note 2002 and figure out what our guidelines are, what we require, what we recommend when it comes to burying those refrigerant lines, what type of precautions we have to take. Things like, some sort of conduit to run our line set through. We don't just want to bury the line set in the dirt. If we're going to go underground, we need to put some sort of sleeving or conduit over that, and what our best recommendations are for those situations.
Yep. Yeah, App Note 2016.
2016 is a commercial app note that explains to you what you need to do when you're going to put an outdoor unit inside, like in a mechanical room. And this is quite common in high-rise buildings in the cities. You got a mechanical room, you're not going to put these on the roof, you're not going to put them in an alley, you're going to put them in a mechanical room. So what do you need to do? Well, you need to get the fresh air in there, you need to duct out the condenser fan. It just goes through and explains to you, hey, here's what you need to do. And that's a 15-page app note. It's going to talk about dampers and sidewall discharge and all kinds of different things, how to maintain your ambient temperatures. Even talks about gas-fired equipment in mechanical spaces, condensate removal. It goes through it all.
Yeah, it'll also talk about duct dimensions. So for our exhaust air, it'll talk about the required dimensions to make sure that we have enough airflow coming off of those condenser fans, and it'll actually talk about static pressures so that we're not restricting that airflow. So there's a lot in there about, again, this is that time where you get the job, you're on your install, and you find out, oh, these outdoor units are going in a mech room. So let me go to this app note and figure out exactly what we need to do to make sure this is going to function.
Yep.
In App Note 2030, Steve, what's App Note 2030?
So expansion and contraction and best practices to avoid damage to pipes or piping and from expansion and contraction going into different modes, right? Especially in heat mode. Copper expands, just like with any HVAC system or a hot water system or any of that. So we want to make sure that you're using best practices, you're avoiding traps, avoiding making traps, and what we look for when making an expansion loop, right? So many feet of rise, you need to have some type of expansion in there so that we don't damage fittings, cause leaks from that expansion and contraction, and, creating any kind of noise or sound.
Yeah.
Right.
I had a contractor in one of my city multi classes who essentially was explaining that there was several different occasions where on long horizontal refrigerant piping runs, there were 45s at the end of them.
Yeah.
And because of the velocity of that refrigerant, the 45-degree fittings were actually getting damaged. And that's when I referred him to this app note saying, hey, you may be in a situation where you need to consider expansion loops because of just the expansion and contraction, that long, piping. We're trying to manage refrigerant. And so with those 45s on long horizontal runs, you get this increased velocity of the refrigerant, and it was doing damage to the fittings themselves. Yeah. And so that's when this app note came in handy. I could refer him here and say, this is what you might need to do.
Yeah, and that goes with supporting the piping correctly, right? And making sure you have the support on that pipe. Because 45s do have a low tensile strength on the inside of that fitting where they could crack on long runs, right? So we got to be careful on how we pipe commercial piping.
Yep.
A lot of pipe on a VRF system.
All right, so let's move on to controls. So we've gone through some of the residential, the big app notes for residential, some of the more important for commercial, although there are plenty more. And now we have got our controls section of the app notes. So 3003, Steve, what's on 3003?
So 3003 explains all of the backnet points available in our systems, whether it be using the Procon or using backnet points available on our centralized controller. So what backnet allows you to do is control or look at the state of different points on our system, like fan speed, what mode the system's in. Do I want to change the mode, right? And that can be all tied into a building management system where someone's monitoring these systems and they want to take control remotely.
Yeah, and there'll probably be a controls integrator there, and this is what you need to give them.
Yeah.
Is just this app note right here, 3033.
So again, we can do this
3003, sorry.
Right. So we can do this with a Procon, which the Procon is a small device that just utilizes CN105, and we can hook one up to each indoor unit and control as little or as many indoor units through BACnet.
Yep.
Or we could use, like I said, BACnet through our centralized controller, which give you a lot more possibilities with different BACnet points or objects.
All right, Bryn, 3050. What's app note 3050?
So 3050 was one of my favorite app notes, especially for the M&P. When I teach my 2-day M&P class, in the first 15 minutes or so of class, I mention this app note 3050. So 3050, what it does is it will break down with every single one of our M&P controllers, from a simple MA all the way up to our deluxe MA, MHK2, how to access the function settings. So all of Mitsubishi on the residential has function settings 1 through 28. And if you're using a Mitsubishi controller, you can access them with that controller. How to get in them is different. How to access those function settings with a PAR 40 compared to an MHK2, drastically different. Yep. This app note will break it down step by step how to get to that function settings screen. And then if you scroll down further beyond where you access the function settings, it actually breaks down what those function settings are and what group number they're in or unit number they're in. Yeah. When we're using a deluxe MA, you might have group 1, 2, 3, 4, and all. And each one of them has different function settings in each one of those subcategories. This app note will actually break down what unit number you need to be in to get at that function setting.
And it sounds really confusing. And why is it so confusing? But think about it. Every indoor unit has specific function settings that are designed for that unit. Like a 4-way cassette is much different than a ducted unit, right? The ducted unit, we're dealing with static. With a 4-way cassette, we could be using a function setting for adjusting louvers or how the vanes work on that system. So function settings are kind of a pain in the butt without this app note because they are spread across all of our manuals.
Right.
So they're not all in one place. With this app note, with app note 3050, we've put them all in one location, and there's basically, like you said, 28 function settings for our residential units. But remember, they're unit specific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Steve, I know there's one app note you really like, and that's 3044, which is thermostat interface, the sequence of operation.
Yeah. So the thermostat interface, because there are so many misconceptions and rumors about how the thermostat interface works. First of all, the thermostat interface PAC 445 allows a customer to use a thermostat of their choice. And that could be anything from a simple Honeywell T87 thermostat to a Wi-Fi thermostat like an Ecobee or a Nest or whatever they want to use. 24-volt thermostat, and you're going to need a 24-volt transformer, and that could be anything from a small 5 VA transformer that can fit neatly in one of our indoor units, or you might need a bigger transformer depending on the thermostat you're using. If it draws a lot of power, you may need a bigger transformer. But what it is it's just a small module with a CN105 cable. You plug it into one of our indoor units on CN105, and on the other end, it's basic 24-volt thermostat wiring: red, green, yellow, white, and so on.
Yeah, and I don't want everybody to be afraid or scared about these app notes, but the thermostat interface, there are just 5 app notes on the thermostat interface alone. Right? But it depends on what you need. So one of them is going to talk about a thermostat interface on installing with a zoning system. Then there's the one with the sequence of operation. There's the one with settings for humidity control. And then there's a sequence of operation for the thermostat interface 2, sequence of operation, as well as connecting the thermostat 2 to a zoning system.
Right, and those are the important ones, the sequence of operation, because like I said, there are a lot of misconceptions on how it operates, but that breaks it down, how it exactly operates our system.
Yeah, so to clarify, we're talking about with app note 3044. That's our PAC 444. So that was our previous, that was typically used with something like an SVZ.
Right.
Well, we recently came out with the PAC 445 with our new IntelliHeat. And because of the way that IntelliHeat functions, we had to kind of update that thermostat interface. So now it's called the thermostat interface 2. And so app note 3062 will go over the sequence operations for that new PAC 445. So there's actually 2 app notes. One's for the older PAC 444 and then our new PAC 445.
Good point, because the PAC 444, the previous generation, will not work on the IntelliHeat A coil.
Right. And the reason these numbers jump around a little bit, and if you haven't noticed, right, the first digit is going to tell you what category we're in. So if the app note starts with a 1, it's a residential. If it starts with a 2, it's commercial. And if it starts with a 3, it's controls. And then it's in the order as they're written. So we've written these app notes, the 5 for the thermostat interface, at different times throughout history here, and that's when we put them on there. So it's 3003 to 3063 is how they're in there, and the next one would probably be 3064 or whatever. But just that. And there are others that we didn't even mention that are important, but they're all there. We could do, I think, 50 episodes of just going through every single app note. We're just trying to give everybody a high level here. And
another thing to keep in mind with app notes, they get updated. So we constantly add app notes as we have more demand or we see a question being asked frequently from our contractors, from engineers, from salesmen. We will make new app notes and add to them. So I always recommend, peruse it the first time, look into the ones that, apply to you, and then check back every couple months, just see if anything's been added, because I'm sure they have been. I mean, our most recent controls have been specifically about that PAC 445 because of the addition of the IntelliHeat.
Yeah.
Once the IntelliHeat came out, we really had to start to clarify and help out our contractors get a little bit better understanding of how that third-party thermostat interface works.
Yeah. So the next time, my recommendation is, if you're a contractor out there, the next time you're on My Link Drive, just take a few minutes and click on the App Notes tab and just go through so you're aware and you're familiar with what's there. Then when you have a question, you kind of know, hey, I remember seeing an app note on that. Let me go read that. And they're PDFs. you can download them to your computer. You can print them out. You can take them with you on a job.
Yep.
So they're really useful.
Yep.
And I think when we're discussing about doing this episode, we're talking about what topic we're going to do. And I think we all agreed this is a very underutilized section of mylinkdrive.com.
It is.
Yeah, big
So we're
time.
trying to get the awareness out there.
Yeah. So for any additional information on all of the topics that we covered, sign up for one of our classes, right? Take a look at our calendar, go to MitsubishiComfort.com, click on 4 Pros, click on training, and you will see a list of classes that we offer: basic M&P, advanced M&P, 3-day basic city multi, advanced city multi, advanced residential controls is a great class. I always tell everybody, sign up for that class, attend that class. The book for that class is fantastic because it has a lot of information that is spread across all our manuals. Yeah. And
it basically covers every control that you could possibly have for an M&P piece of equipment.
Yep.
So it's a good class. And if you have a topic, a lot of the topics we do come to us from our listeners, ideas. So if you have a topic, something you want us to talk about, send us an email. Steve, what's our email?
Our email is metustechshow@hvac.mea.com.
Yep. Send us a line, drop us a line, and we'll send you a prize. We really won't, but we can say we will. Yeah.
Well, the prize is just thank you.
Yeah. We'll mention we won't mention your name either, so we can't do that either. No. Yeah. Basically, there's no benefit to you sending us this, so just don't.
Yeah. And if you have a favorite wing sauce, email us and let us know what the hottest sauce was that you tried, Scoville range, whatever it is, right?
You want to know the funny thing? I got an email, I don't know, maybe a month ago, we got an email at the METUS Tech Show. Somebody was going to a class, and I was going to be in that class, and I forget if there's a tech show or me they sent, but yeah, we listen to the podcast, so we expect you to tell us where the good places to eat are. And of course, that's the last 5 minutes of class. Who's staying? Where do you want to eat? You're visiting? Here's where you go eat. Send them here.
So where do we get wings around here?
Paul,
my favorite is still around here locally. It's still the 99. I think it's a regional chain. I'm not sure it's all over the country. But except in Duff's and Pluckers, I think are chains too, but they're regional. It's not like they're nationwide. And the same thing with Miller's. I think Miller's is also a chain. So those places are actually pretty good. But I find the best wings, other than ones we've talked about, just usually it's a little hole in the wall. I told you about the ones with the feathers. I mean, that was just me.
So I'm from southeastern Massachusetts, so I'm about an hour south of Southborough, and I got a couple of places. Max's does a great job with wings. If I had my son Mikey on this podcast, he'd tell me where every awesome wing place is.
Yeah.
But my son Tom was like that. He rates places based on their wings, and he has a list in his head. He goes, "This place has good pizza but bad wings, but this place has good wings and bad pizza." And he's trying to.
It's just like my kid, pizza and wings. Yeah, their life.
My son's golden life is to find the place that has great pizza and great wings. He goes, he's so aggravated. They either got good pizza or good wings, but they don't have both.
Yeah, it's never both. Well, out in Western Mass, we have a place called The Hangar. It started in Amherst. It was an old hangar bay.
Whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah.
The Hangar.
The Hangar.
Sounds familiar.
So there's one in Greenfield now. I think there's one in Springfield. And then it originated in Amherst, which was actually in a hangar bay. That's how got its name.
There was
name all
one
their
wing
wings
place in Western Mass that used to sell, he used to call it the aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
And it was like an actual aircraft carrier cardboard thing, and they fill it with wings. So the kind of thing you'd order for a football game and bring it home. And it was like 100 wings and
what's everyone else
20
eat?
sauces.
They still do all their wing sizes are named after different things related to planes. Like they have the DC-7.
It's got to be the same place.
And then I get the smallest wings, and it's called the paper airplane. And then as you go up, it's like larger and larger aircrafts. So
yeah,
but it's great.
Sense.
Awesome
the
wings.
aircraft carrier holds them all.
All right, we'll see you on the next one.